What happened when I found out my wife was lying? I never imagined my wife could betray me in a way that would make me question every single day of our marriage. But one random Tuesday night, a simple mistake she made changed everything. My name's Ryan. I'm 34, a software engineer, and I've been married to Emily for 9 years. We met in college. She studied marketing. I was the tech guy. We built our lives together from scratch, moving from a tiny apartment into a nice suburban home. I thought we were a team. Then, 3 weeks ago, I noticed something strange. Emily had always been open with her phone, leaving it on the table, never using a lock screen. But suddenly, she started keeping it in her pocket at all times. She even took it into the bathroom. At first, I brushed it off. Everyone deserves privacy, right? But then I saw her smiling at her phone one night while cooking. When I asked what was funny, she quickly flipped the screen face down and said, "Oh, just a silly ad." That's when the seed of suspicion was planted. It got worse. She started going to networking events for work, at least twice a week. These were always in the evenings, and she'd come home smelling faintly of cologne that definitely wasn't mine. The breaking point came when I got off work early one Friday. Her car wasn't in the driveway. She'd told me she was at a late meeting, so I decided to surprise her by bringing her favorite takeout. But when I arrived at her office building, it was nearly empty. The receptionist, who knew me well, said, "Oh, Emily left hours ago. Said she wasn't feeling well." My stomach dropped. That night, she came home at her usual late meeting time, acting perfectly normal. But I couldn't unhear what the receptionist had told me. And that's when I decided I needed answers. One slip-up gave me the perfect chance. The following Tuesday, she left her work laptop open on the dining table while taking a shower. On the desktop was a folder labeled Event Photos. When I clicked it open, I saw, inside that Event Photos folder were dozens of pictures. At first glance, they looked harmless. Emily standing with coworkers, smiling at some kind of fancy rooftop event. But then, I saw him. Tall, dark hair, expensive suit. In nearly every photo, he was next to her. Too close. His hand on the small of her back, leaning in to whisper something in her ear. And in one picture, her head tilted back in laughter, his arm wrapped around her waist like they were a couple. My pulse started to pound in my ears. I scrolled faster, and then I found the one image that made my blood run cold, the two of them alone, clinking champagne glasses in what was clearly a hotel room. I slammed the laptop shut. My hands were shaking. She came out of the bathroom, hair damp, wearing the robe I bought her for our anniversary. She smiled when she saw me, that same warm, practiced smile she's always used to make me feel safe. But now, it looked like a mask. "Everything okay?" she asked. I forced a smile back and said, "Yeah, just checking an email." My voice felt tight. That night, I barely slept. My mind was racing. Who was he? How long had this been going on? And most importantly, how was I going to catch her without giving away what I knew? The next day, I left work early and parked my car 2 blocks from her office. If she really had another networking event, I was going to follow her. At 5:17 p.m., she walked out, dressed in a fitted black dress and heels. She got into her car and drove, not toward downtown where those events usually happened, but toward the west side of the city. She pulled into the parking lot of a sleek, modern hotel. I stayed far enough back so she wouldn't notice me. My heart was pounding as I watched her get out of the car. And then I saw him, the man from the photos, walk out of the hotel lobby, smiling as he held the door for her. She kissed him on the cheek. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. They walked inside together, laughing, completely oblivious to the fact that her husband was sitting less than 50 feet away, watching every step. I stayed in the car for almost an hour, debating whether to storm inside or keep gathering evidence. When they finally came out, it was dark. They didn't look rushed. She looked happy. Happier than she had in months. I followed them as they drove separately, him in a black BMW, her in her car, to a small Italian restaurant on the edge of town. They walked in together like it was the most natural thing in the world. And that's when my plan started to take shape. I didn't walk into that restaurant. Not yet. If I stormed in now, I'd get answers. But I'd also lose the chance to destroy her carefully built web of lies. Instead, I drove home, sat at my desk, and started digging. First, I found the hotel's name from the photo metadata. Every image taken with her phone kept location data unless it was removed, and she clearly had no idea about that little detail. The hotel's website had an online booking system. It didn't take long to cross-reference her late work nights with dates she had checked in there. I found 4 bookings. Same hotel, same room type, always under his name but charged to her credit card. That was the first nail in her coffin. Next, I remembered the man's face from the pictures. A quick reverse image search from a LinkedIn photo I found in the corner of one shot gave me his name, Jonathan Miles. Vice president at some investment firm across town. Married with 2 kids. Perfect. I printed the most incriminating photos and slipped them into an envelope, along with the booking confirmations. I addressed it to his wife. But I didn't mail it yet. Timing would be everything. 2 days later, Emily told me she'd be working late again. This time, I decided to follow her inside. I dressed casually, grabbed my phone, and walked into the hotel lobby about 10 minutes after she arrived. My heart was hammering in my chest, but I kept my head down and pretended to scroll. And there they were, sitting at the bar. She was leaning forward, her hand brushing his arm, laughing at something he'd just said. Jonathan's hand slid to her thigh under the counter. I caught it on video. They left the bar and headed for the elevator. I stayed far enough back that they didn't notice me. On the 7th floor, they walked into a room together. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. The video footage was more than enough. That night, I barely spoke to her when she came home. She acted like nothing had happened. And that's when the rage started to harden into something colder. Something sharper. If I played this right, I could ruin them both, her and her precious Jonathan, in one calculated move. The plan would be simple. Expose them publicly without giving them time to spin a story. Make sure his wife saw the evidence first. Let their careers implode from the fallout. But for it to work, I'd have to act like everything was normal. Just a little longer. For the next week, I played the part of the clueless husband perfectly. I asked about her projects, complimented her cooking, even offered to pick her up from work, which of course she declined every time. Meanwhile, I was setting up the final strike. On Friday morning, I scheduled a series of emails to be sent out at exactly 6 p.m., the moment she'd be in that hotel again. Each email contained a carefully curated package, a short video of her and Jonathan at the bar. Still frames from the elevator security footage I'd discreetly obtained. The photo metadata showing the hotel location. Screenshots of the booking confirmations. The recipients? Jonathan's wife, his boss, her boss, and, for the grand finale, a group email to both of their company's executive teams. I wasn't done yet. That afternoon, I printed 30 copies of the most damning photo, her in that hotel room, sitting on the bed in nothing but his shirt, glass of wine in hand. Each copy went into an unmarked envelope, along with a note. This is what your colleague is doing on company time. I left them in the break room of her office in Jonathan's firm. At 5:45 p.m., I parked across from the hotel and waited. Sure enough, she arrived, dressed to kill, her heels clicking against the pavement. 10 minutes later, Jonathan joined her. They disappeared inside. 6 p.m. exactly, the emails went out. It didn't take long. At 6:17, I saw Jonathan's phone light up as he stood at the bar. He stared at the screen, went pale, and muttered something to Emily. She checked her phone, and I saw her entire world shatter in real time. Jonathan stormed out. Emily followed, calling after him, but he didn't look back. She stood in the street, scanning her phone, her face a mix of panic and rage. I didn't approach her. I just started my car and drove away. By the time I got home, my own phone was buzzing nonstop calls, texts, voicemails. I ignored them all. 2 hours later, there was a knock at my door. It was her, mascara running, begging to explain. I let her talk for exactly 30 seconds before I handed her a small suitcase with her things and shut the door in her face. The next morning, I heard from a mutual friend that Jonathan's wife had kicked him out, and both he and Emily were on indefinite leave from their jobs while HR investigated. It wasn't just revenge, it was justice. And I made sure they both felt it every single day.